Would the Neighborhood Development Committee now please come to order and clerk call the roll?
Alderman Schmidt. Here. Alderman Moore. Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderman Villa.
Here.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
Present.
Chairman Ortmann.
Present.
7 present. You have a quorum.
Okay, first on the agenda today is Board Bill 123, Alderwoman Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Board Bill 123 relates to 2117 Russell Boulevard, which is in the McKinley Heights neighborhood. This, I'm sure, was a foreclosure, and it is being renovated into a single-family dwelling. The acquisition cost was $135, and construction cost will be $205. It's going to have 3,600 square feet in it and 8 bedrooms. So I would say the family's planning to stay there a long time. And we're providing 5 years of tax abatement as an incentive. Do you want another set of pictures?
If you have them, it's much easier. Questions? Alderman Schmidt?
None.
Alderman Moore? Alderman Cohen?
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Howard?
No questions.
Alderman Villa?
No thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard?
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia?
Questions?
Unbelievable.
I think it's something.
Who's the developer on this?
Gerald Hawthorne is the property owner, and
The property owner's going to develop?
yeah.
Okay, there's that. Okay, hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 123.
Second.
Call the roll.
Alderman Schmidt.
Aye.
Alderman Moore. Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderman Villa.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
Aye.
Chairman Ortmann.
Aye.
7 aye votes do pass.
Next on the agenda is Board Bill 118, Alderwoman Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Board Bill 118 relates to 1409 Missouri Avenue, which is in the Lafayette Square neighborhood. And again, it is a property that's being done by the property owner as a single family. Acquisition costs $140, construction costs $127, and we're providing 5 years of abatement for this. There are 2,400 square feet in the house. There'll be 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. These people had lived in the neighborhood in an apartment, and they purchased this house, and we would provide 5 years of abatement.
Alderman Schmidt?
Is it the yellow one?
It's the red brick
The red one.
that's attached to the others.
Thank you.
Alderman Cohen?
How close is this to the 6th Ward?
A block, either way, over to Jefferson or down to Park. But it's directly across from Lafayette Park.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Howard?
No questions.
Alderman Villa?
No question?
Alderwoman Hubbard?
No question.
Alderwoman Ingrassia?
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 118.
Second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objections, Board Bill 118 is that with a due pass. Next on the agenda is Board Bill 105.
Board Bill 105 relates to 2340 South 11th Street, which is in the Soulard neighborhood. When I moved in, this was occupied by a long-term family, and the senior passed away, and the family seems to have lost the house in foreclosure. So it was acquired by a couple who are renovating it. The acquisition cost was $52,000, and their construction costs are $170. They have been working, or it's a long-term project. and we're providing 5 years of tax abatement.
Alderman Schmidt.
No questions.
Alderman Cohen.
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderman Villa.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia. No questions. Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 105.
So moved.
Second?
Previous.
Hearing no objection to previous rule, Board Bill 105 is out with a due pass recommendation. Donna, let me know if anyone signed up to speak on any of these. There's a big crowd out there. Next on the agenda is Board Bill 106.
Okay, Board Bill 106 is 1041 Shenandoah, and again, having lived in the neighborhood a long time, I can tell you this house was owned by the Pratt family. They used to keep their beer in the refrigerator on the front porch, and that's where they hung out all the time. When Agnes died, the family let the house go despite the fact that one of the kids is a tuck pointer. And the house got so bad that you could see through the roof from the street out in front. So we were happy to see this go for sale after sitting vacant for so long at tax sale for $25,000. The construction cost on this is $264,000, and a good portion of that is brickwork, I can assure you. It is going to be a 3-bedroom unit with 2 parking spaces, and it will be a single family with 5 years of tax abatement. And it really has some beautiful masonry on it. But I forgot to show you the pictures.
We were patiently waiting.
Wanted to see where Agnes kept her beer.
The refrigerator's in the Smithsonian.
Alderman Schmidt.
It's on the alley? An alley house?
No, it faces Shenandoah, but it butts up to the alley on that one side, on the east side. But the wall was almost in the alley.
Alderman Cohen.
I know this property all too well.
Did you hang out there and get beer out of that refrigerator?
My mother may have, actually, but
When he was 19.
Or 15?
I'm sure it'll be an exciting project.
It already is.
I know there's a lot of folks in the neighborhood that care about that.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Villa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Merit, is the
Merit.
lapel pin on your right shoulder double as a body camera?
It's not merit.
Yes, it's filming you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 106.
So moved.
Second?
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 106 is out with a due pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a tough committee.
You're done for the day. Next on the agenda is Board Bill 103, Alderman Conway. And Alderman Conway is going to handle the 15th Ward bills also.
Which address is 103?
4019
Oh.
Magnolia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project, we're seeking tax abatement for this property. The acquisition cost was $45,000, and the final construction cost will be $255,000. This is a couple that's lived in the neighborhood for a very, very long time, and they're relocating and making this their principal residence on Magnolia Place. Those pictures don't quite do the rehab justice, but I personally inspected that property.
Alderman Schmidt.
What neighborhood is that?
The Shaw neighborhood.
Thank you. That's it.
Alderman Cohen.
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard,
No questions.
Alderman Villa,
No questions?
Alderwoman Hubbard,
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 103.
So moved.
Call the roll.
Alderman Schmidt,
Aye.
Alderman Moore, Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderman Villa,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingrassia,
Aye.
Chairman Ortmann.
Aye.
7 aye votes do pass.
Board Bill 103 is out with a due pass. Next on the agenda is 15th Ward Bill 107.
Does no one ask for previous rule?
All right. I've been asked by our former colleague and by the Tower Grove Neighborhood Community Development Corporation to handle these properties since Alderwoman Florida is no longer with us. Here are the pictures. She has moved on to a higher pay. I think the recorder makes $91,000 a year. And it's a nice-looking
Right,
office.
that
down
doesn't
there.
have anything to do with this bill.
I realize that. I'm on the low-paying alderman time right now. But anyway, this is in Tower Grove South. It's an important property to the community. You've got the pictures there. And then we would respectfully ask for 5-year tax abatement on that property.
This is 3904 Hartford,
Correct.
107. Alderman Schmidt,
I have no questions.
Alderman Cohen,
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard,
This is going to be a single family or a two-family?
That will be a single, single family when they're finished.
Is it currently a two-family?
Those sandbags?
It is an existing single family.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Alderman Villa,
No questions?
Alderwoman Hubbard,
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 107.
Second.
Do I have a, hearing no objection to previous rule, Board Bill 107 is out with a due pass. Next on the agenda is Board Bill 108. Pictures, please.
And here is
That's a
Board
numerical
Bill
order, is the way you
108.
said it for me.
Again, this is in the Tower Grove Neighborhood Community Development Corporation area. They've actually asked me to handle this bill also. The developer is Berto Garcia. I've seen the work he's done in the Shaw neighborhood. He does very good work. It's to make 2 duplexes into single families, and that's to address 3804 and 3822 Humphrey. The acquisition, the construction cost on 3804 is $267,000, and the construction cost on 3822 is $250,000.
Alderman Schmidt,
I'm not, well, I know that you're handling this for the 15th Ward. I'm not real adept yet at finding the market value analysis. Is that on these?
On some of them, it's not what you might have. On the MVA, on my lead sheet here, it doesn't tell me what it is there, but I know it's no better than a C. And I'm not begrudging Alderwoman Florida.
Okay, because I saw that the prior one on 107 was a 5-year and this one was a 10-year, and
Right, and the note is this Berto Garcia, who's doing, is a very good, it's Garcia Development, they've done very good work, and my note here is that the way it's priced out right now, there's only an 8% developer profit, which would be significantly less than the norm. The norm would be 12 to 17%.
Hey, thanks.
Alderman Cohen,
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard,
No questions.
Alderman Villa,
No questions?
Alderwoman Hubbard,
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia. Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 108.
So moved.
Second, previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 108 is out with a due pass. Board Bill 127. This one's yours.
And is that 3854?
4151-53 Cleveland
Oh, right.
and 4012 Flad.
Right, I used to live right up the street at 4151-53 Cleveland. Actually, at one time, that was an 8-family, and it was a mess. Some guy got it and kind of put it back to a 4-family so he could get bigger rents. It has sat idle for years and years and years. That continues to be, it would be the white stone front that you would see, but what you see on the picture of the back is what I was accustomed to seeing for many, many years. So,
Do we have pictures?
oh, you can have the pictures. And the developer we've had quality issues with, it's Orlando Askins. I've had some, the chairman's smiling. We both have worked with this guy or worked around him a little bit, but I've met with him. I've gotten, the neighbors have agreed that, you know, they will be comfortable with the work that he is doing on this property. He's also doing 4012 Flad Avenue.
Alderman Schmidt,
No questions.
Alderman Cohen,
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Howard,
No questions.
Alderman Villa,
Just got the video, Mr. Chairman. Give me a second. No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia. No questions. Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 127.
So moved.
Second.
Previous.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 127 is out with a due pass. Next on the agenda is Board Bill 128.
And that would be 38, 54, 58, and 60 Shenandoah. Those are 3 buildings immediately west of what I would call the old Tomboy store at the corner of 39th and Shenandoah. They've sat vacant probably for 5 or 6 years. The fellow that owned the Tomboy store 20 years ago gave them to his kids. They ran them into the ground. We did get a local group to go after to renovate all 3 of them on probably one of the worst remaining blocks in the Shaw neighborhood. It would be right across the street from our brand-new ice cream parlor, Ice's. So it's given us an opportunity to try to move these properties back on the property tax rolls and to get them back online. These are 3 gut rehabs. The total construction cost over the 3, including historic tax credits, is $926,000.
Alderman Schmidt.
You did say ICES and not ISIS.
ICES.
Thank you very much, that's it.
And it is really cool because they make fresh ice cream and then they blast it with liquid nitrogen, and it's immediately cold.
I saw it on the news.
Okay.
Alderman Cohen.
I think that that's a really cool concept for a business. So, and these, who's the developer on these properties?
This will be Stephanie and Ross Naker.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderman Villa.
Steve, excuse me, Alderman Conway, what is you have a number on how much redevelopment's going on in your ward? What is that number? Just ballpark.
I forgot.
It's a big number, though.
No, it is. It's $71.3 million in residential permits in the last 9 years.
That's impressive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did he pay you to ask that?
Write him the check after the meeting.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No question.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 128.
So moved.
Second, previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 128 is out with a due pass. Alderman Conway's last and final bill on this agenda. No, actually, you've got two more. 135, and then we'll come to the last one.
Right, 135 is our housing corporation in the, for the three neighborhoods, Southwest Garden.
They're in there somewhere.
I know. It's going to be a new construction home in 3884 Fairview. Given the fact that it's one of the harder ones, actually the Tower Grove Neighborhood Community Development Corporation is going to actually have to be the developer. They acquired it for $1,500 from LRA, and they're expecting construction costs of $252,000, and the anticipated sales price is $135,000. You have to lose a little money to get that area of the service district up and running, and that's one of the big things that we're pushing right now. But they will be losing money on that one, but it's being subsidized.
Alderman Schmidt.
No questions.
Alderman Cohen.
What neighborhood is this in?
That will be the Tower Grove South.
Is this the 15th ward?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That did not look like it fit into your local historic district.
Well, I'm a architectural expert for historic districts.
No other questions.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions.
Alderman Villa.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 135.
Moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 135 is out with a due pass. Last, finally, Board Bill 136.
Okay, on Board Bill 136, it's 3518 Utah. The 8th Ward is on the other side of the street. Again, this would have been Alderwoman, Florida. This was a property acquired in a tax sale for $28,000. Its construction cost to be $122,000. And it would be right there by St. Pius Church on the same side of the street.
Alderman Schmidt.
Nothing.
Alderman Cohen.
How much are they planning to spend renovating this?
$122,000.
And they're keeping it a two-family, or?
It'll be a single family, and Mike, this is going to be owner occupied?
Yes, it will be owner occupied.
Okay, great, thank you.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions.
Alderman Villa.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 136.
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 136 is out with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Next on the agenda is non-committee member Alderman Vollmer, Board Bill 102.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. 102 is for 5624 South Magnolia Avenue. Here we go. It's a farmer, two-family residence, $30,000 in acquisition costs, 126 plus in construction. Be turned into a single-family residence, 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths with a detached garage. This area is just a little west of Kenneth's Restaurants, if you remember where the old St. Aloysius Church used to be. This is one of the older buildings. This is not part of the new development that was built up was the site of some nuisance behavior. We're happy to have Mr. Fortunato, GAA Builders, who purchased it and is turning it around, gutting it, and turning it into a single family, because we know single family owner-occupied properties are a little more easy on the neighborhood as opposed to what was there.
Alderman Schmidt.
No questions.
Alderman Cohen.
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions.
Alderman Villa.
No question, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 102.
So move.
Second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 102 is out with a due pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Next on the agenda, Board Bill 122, Alderman Schmidt.
You couldn't do my other one while I'm standing here? I have one more while I'm here.
All right. let me-
110? Have I been a bad boy? You're gonna make me wait?
Yeah. No, it was hiding on the bottom of the pile. Sorry, I didn't see it. So we'll do Board Bill 116 first.
Yeah,
Or no,
110.
that's Rhodey.
110.
Do I have 110?
We do.
Here it is. It was on top of Alderman Cohen's. All right, now we'll hear Board Bill 110.
Board Bill 110, 5132 Daggett Avenue. This is in the Hill neighborhood. This is a lot that is one of the famous Buckhousel lots. We have the house behind the house. The first family members came over, and while they were here, built their little shotgun house, and on the weekends, built a house behind their house in the backyard, so when their cousins came over, they would have a place to live. Naturally, most of those houses are not up to code. These will be torn down. Ms. Anne-Marie Lumetta is returning to the neighborhood. $90,000 in acquisition cost. She's proposing a $257,000 plus owner-occupied home she'll be building on the site. This is one of the 26-foot wide shotgun lots, so it's a rather tall house she'll be building, but still within things, but trying to fit into it. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Alderman Schmidt.
I have none.
Alderman Cohen.
So this will be new construction?
Yes, they're going to tear both those, there's a house, if you walk out the back door of the front house, you see up there?
Right.
The front door of the other house is right there. This is, was common practice in the 30s on the Hill, where they were just, the 20s and 30s actually, where they would just build houses anywhere they could. And no one stopped them.
No other questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions.
Alderman Villa.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingrassia. Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 110.
Chairman, I move Board Bill 110 be approved by previous roll.
Second.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 110 is out with a due pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your fine committee.
Next on the agenda, Board Bill 122, Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. 3501 California is at California and Potomac, just south of Cherokee Street, which is undergoing a renaissance, as you know. The acquisition cost for $50,000 and the construction is $57,382, which is much less monumental than some of the projects we've been hearing here. I would consider this a Tudor arts and crafts building. I'm told by one of our friends here who's now an architect that this looks like a shirtwaist Kansas City style building as well. For those of you interested, this is someone who's coming in here and they're going to live in the building, Lucas Delort. It's a single family. It'll be 4 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, 2 parking spaces in the back. And based on what I'm seeing today, I should probably be asking for 20 years of tax abatement, but I don't think that it's available. So this is in the F market value analysis, so this means it's sort of at the leverage tipping point where it will make a great deal of difference. Historic tax credits are available through the Gravois Jefferson Streetcar Suburb National Register Historic District, the longest name and largest district in the state of Missouri. It's in the Gravois Park neighborhood.
Alderman Cohen.
There aren't that many of these style homes in that area. It's quite
Right.
gorgeous.
It is, yeah, it's very distinctive. Thank you.
Alderwoman Howard.
A lovely home. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Alderman Villa.
You're going to ask me to move it?
Do you know why do we call it shirtwaist?
He told me it's like the waist of a shirt, I assume, right? If you Google it, he's
Did you
the
just make
architect.
that up? I can't.
Oh, it's
Google-
online.
I can't Google it, Alderman.
I went online and it does have that with the veranda and so forth that wraps around the house, and then he has the 2 levels, so it looks like the waist of a shirt. I assume that that's why they call it that. I don't know. But that is a style, and it's in Kansas City. But I think in our area it would be just as appropriate to call it a Tudor arts and crafts house.
Well, you can certainly employ your poetic license and call it anything you want. It doesn't look like a shirtwaist to me.
I didn't mean to be licentious, Alderman. I just intended to.
And I didn't expect you to answer my question, Alderman.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No question.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 122.
Make a motion to pass Board Bill 122.
Okay.
Got a motion.
It's unanimous.
We got a couple of motions and a second. Okay. Well, but we had a motion and a second up here and then previous roll. Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 122 is out with a due pass.
Thank you very much.
Recommendation. Next on the agenda is Board Bill 99, and Alderwoman Ingrassia is going to handle this.
Difficult, Craig, you know that. Shirtwaist, get out of here.
And we do have a speaker, Mr. Pickle.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here on Board Bill 99, which is a 15-year request on a light tech project for scattered sites that DeSales will be redeveloping. This would ensure that we conform with the 15-year light tech affordability requirement.
Oh.
So as I said, the developer is DeSales Community Housing Corporation. It'll be renovation of existing 2-family residences and construction of new multifamily residences. $452,000 in acquisition cost and $6.7 million in construction and renovation costs. This will provide quality affordable housing to folks living in the area. And as most of you know, 54% of our residents currently spend 30% or more of their income monthly on rent. So this is an exciting project for this area of the city. I'll take questions and then I guess turn it over to Mr. Pickle.
Tom, did you want to speak first?
It doesn't matter.
Huh?
If there are questions for Alderwoman Ingrassia, that's fine. I'll follow up.
Alderman Schmidt.
I have none.
Alderman Cohen.
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Howard.
I'm sorry, I don't know that I understood what you said. Are these going to be built as rental units?
Correct.
Section 8 rental units?
Not Section 8, it's just affordable housing.
Okay, so they will be rentals, not home ownership?
Correct. DeSales received an award from MHDC for low-income housing tax credits.
So they won't be paying market rate rent, but it won't be subsidized housing?
That's correct.
Tom, come on up for a minute.
That's kind of
Here, how many years in a row did you put in for this?
Actually, 5 times. We applied to MHDC for this project, and we changed it over time, excuse me. In fact, initially, we had structured it mainly as single-family homes that were going to be available for lease purchase. But then MHDC started applying more and more stringent requirements on cost containment to the point where we really couldn't do that. But just to elaborate on what Alderwoman Ingrassia said, these are going to be apartments that we will rent. We've developed just about 100 units under this program for over 15 years, and with a heavy concentration here in the southern end of Fox Park, where there was a great predominance of 4-family buildings, absentee-owned buildings, vacant buildings, and we have used the low-income housing tax credit, I think, pretty effectively and successfully down there to really stabilize and shore up that part of the neighborhood that otherwise, I think at that point, didn't have much of a future to it. So we own the properties, we manage the properties ourselves, we're accountable to the neighborhood, and I think it's been a good thing, and this will build on that. We're particularly excited for a couple of reasons. Number one, one area of concentration for this project is going to be on the 2800 block of Magnolia between California and Nebraska, which is still a largely intact block with a lot of nice architecture, but there's a lot of vacant buildings there. We're hoping that this project can really be a catalyst for additional investment coming in here. Another thing we're excited about on this project, unlike everything else we've done previously, which is all rehab, most of this project is going to be new construction. We're going to be doing 2 historic tax credit rehabs on a building on Magnolia, one on the 2600 block of Oregon, but the 9 other buildings in this project are all going to be new construction, and those will be 2-family flats, kind of a recreation of the typical 2-family flat, about 1,000 square feet per unit, all designed and built in accordance with the historic district standards, already been approved by Cultural Resources and the Neighborhood Association. So we're excited to get going on this. As Alderman Ortmann mentioned, we've been working a long time to get it funded. We're there. We want to get it under development, and we're hoping we can close and be under construction by the end of October.
Alderman Villa?
Tom, is it fair to ask you, isn't there going to be a huge feeding frenzy, and I know you're beyond that point, for the MHDC money? Or is this a typical year, or am I getting more letters than normal?
I understand they got 115 applications statewide. The low-income housing tax credit is a very highly sought-after financing tool for not only affordable housing, well, primarily affordable housing production, but also for neighborhood redevelopment. I've said for a long time that it's the most effective neighborhood redevelopment tool available because it allows groups like ours and private developers to go in and do the tough stuff, to go in on the 2800 block of Magnolia, which probably no private investor in their right mind right now would be doing, but we can go in and fix some of those big problems and set the table for more private investment to come in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Alderwoman Hubbard?
What's the total number of units that'll be online once it's completed?
For the properties included in this board bill, there are 24. One thing I did want to point out, I'm sure Alderman Villa noticed that this is part of a 36-unit project. Another 12 of the units are going to be down in the 11th ward, but we elected not to include them in the tax abatement bill because we're going to be reducing the number of units at that site from 14 down to 12. And once we do that, we want to appeal the assessment and get it down significantly. So we didn't want to go in there and freeze the assessment at the higher value. So we think all in all that'll work out to the benefit of the project. But there'll be 36 units at all, 24 included within this bill.
No further.
Dale, can you explain why we've got 15 years of tax abatement in this bill?
Well, actually, Tom may be able to explain it better than I because he's probably understands the low-income housing tax. But it's a 15-year program. And so part of the deal is that in exchange for getting it, you have to keep the the units affordable for that 15-year period, and giving 15 years of tax abatement helps in keeping those rents in line with what's required under the low-income housing tax credit program.
And I kind of wanted that explanation because now we're being taped so people can understand why it's a 15-year tax abatement. It's pretty much required when we utilize these kind of tax credits.
Right.
Okay, hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 99.
So moved.
Hearing no objection to previous rule, Board Bill 99 is out with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Hubbard. Huh? She did 99. That's hers and mine.
But
Yeah, but she's on the committee. You're in order after that.
Board Bill 101, Alderman Ortmann.
Thank you. This project is in the Benton Park West neighborhood. And this developer's done several projects. It's an unoccupied two-family being converted to a single family. The acquisition cost through CDA was $1. Renovation cost is $252,000, and the asking price is going to be $131,000. There'll be a two-car garage, first floor laundry, and the tax abatement is 5 years.
Alderman Schmidt,
No questions.
Alderman Cone,
no questions.
Alderwoman Howard,
No questions.
Alderman Villa,
No questions, Madam Chairman.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to pass out of committee with a due pass recommendation on previous rule.
Second?
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill is out with the 101. Board Bill 101 is out with the due pass recommendation.
Thank you. Alderman Cohen. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it pleases the committee, I would like to consider Board Bill 111, which is a tax abatement for 5103-5105 Wicklow Place. For those of you that aren't familiar with Wicklow, I wouldn't be surprised because it's only about half a block long. It's just south of the area that a lot of folks know as the Virginia Quarry, or Anheuser-Busch Quarry, which is about 8 acres of vacant land right on the kind of southeast corner of the Dutchtown neighborhood. And on the southern end of it is actually the beginning of the Carondelet neighborhood. This half block has actually, at one point in time, was owned in large part by the brewery. The brewery owned the quarry space and bought up the existing properties around it and rented them out prior to the InBev acquisition. And when the acquisition occurred, they actually divested many of the properties and they ended up in the city's hands. So this was an LRA property that was acquired by Ray Akiki, who has done a number of other developments in the neighborhood. and has renovated it into a single-family residence at a redevelopment cost of about $35,000, an acquisition cost of $8,000, which went directly to the LRA.
Alderman Schmidt.
Alderman, I grew up next door to one of those rental properties that the brewery had for years.
Did you?
I did. Thank you.
I've actually seen a great deal of renovation taking place since they've been transferred over to the city. So there's been about 3 rehabs on that block, which has been wonderful.
Alderwoman Howard.
No question.
Alderman Villa.
No question, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no further questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 111.
So moved.
Second. Previous.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 111 is out with a due pass. Next on the agenda is Board Bill 129.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board Bill 129 is asking for tax abatement at 5201-5203 Virginia Avenue. This is a property that's right adjacent to the old Virginia Theater property, which was one of the first Warenberg theaters that was built in the city of St. Louis. It's right there at Virginia and Walsh. For the longest time, this was owned by an older gentleman by the name of Alfred, who passed away a number of years ago. And the property went into probate and was recently acquired from the city administrator's office, or through the city administrator's office, by Mary Joan Wood, Greenwood LLC. Her son is actually the owner of Sawhorse Studios, Jason McIntyre, who owns the property next door and the property next door to that. And they have done a wonderful job at investing in the community and are hoping to renovate the upper floors into residential space, probably a 3-bedroom apartment. And then use the lower space possibly for commercial use and or residential use, depending upon whether or not they can find the appropriate tenant for the downstairs unit. The acquisition cost was right around $10,000. The redevelopment costs are going to be in the neighborhood of $215,000, and I'm asking for a 10-year tax abatement for this property.
Alderman Schmidt.
Do we have a photo of that?
Oh, I'm sorry. There are the photos. A lot of people know it as the Green Building on Virginia, or the old TV building. There was a TV repair shop that was in there for a while.
Yeah, we used to see, that I told you, I'm sure that we used to see the Virginia Theater from our backyard.
Yeah.
No question.
Hopefully this will be a complementary project that helps bring some comfort to the redevelopers of the Virginia Theater building as well.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions, just point of interest regarding who's redeveloping the theater.
Well, there is no current developer for the theater. There's actually a response to the RFP that SLDC put out. There's a group in Austin, Texas that's looking at the property right now, but it never hurts to have redevelopment immediately adjacent to those properties to make other people feel comfortable about.
There was a plan, I was like, ooh.
Well, the current proposal calls for a dinner theater inside the old Virginia Theater building, and the proposal which they submitted to CDA was for about $3 million in redevelopment costs of the theater building. So hopefully we'll be able to see that realized, but of course it's all in the very conceptual stages right now, and so I'm not trying to get my hopes up too much. But it is very reassuring to see other investment taking place right around there, because I think that they'll make other developers feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Alderman Villa.
Alderman, is this on the west side of the street?
It is on the west side of the street.
Okay, and then, is there still a church in the Virginia show?
No, the Virginia show, or the Virginia Theater, is actually owned by the LRA at the moment. And so there was a church in there for probably about 20 years, which vacated right around the time I became alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 129.
So moved.
Second.
Previous.
Hearing no objection to previous rule, Board Bill 129 is out with a due pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I appreciate your favorable consideration.
Alderwoman Howard, 104.
I've been telling Karen I've been going to church here for the last 10 years. You tell me it's been closed for 20 years.
I'm before you today, committee members, to introduce Board Bill 104, the renovation and repurposing of 5320 and Brannon Avenue and 5214 Walsh Avenue. The developer is Brian Mingus. It's the renovation of a vacant school building. The acquisition was $325. Construction costs $1,032,156. Rents range from $650. He'll be making 22 loft-style apartments out of this, mixed use, 18 one-bedroom, one-bath units, 4 two-bedroom, one-bath units. Average unit size will be 700 square feet. Parking will be adjoining this on the back lot on the Walsh Avenue side. It was the former play yard for the school. He's going to do a sort of a green area back there. Community laundry area, outdoor picnic, grilling area, and a fenced area for dog walking. I'm supporting a 10-year tax abatement. This is an extensive renovation of the area and repurposing of a building that will no longer be used by the Lutheran schools. It's been vacant for the past 2 years, and it's will be going into an area that has multi-family dwellings, and I think it'll be a good addition to the mix of homes offered in the South Hampton neighborhood area. And here are the pictures, I'm sorry.
We don't answer questions until we get pictures.
I understand that. You don't ask any either until you get pictures.
Alderman Schmidt.
No question. Oh.
Alderman Cohen.
No questions.
Alderman Villa.
Other than congratulations, the reuse of old school buildings are tough. It sounds like a good reuse.
I think it'll be good and fit in with the neighborhood. And the Southampton neighborhood people are behind it, which is a good thing too. And this is a responsible landlord. He's done quite a few things in the city. Alderman Vaccaro recommended him highly.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No question.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
Was this Hope Lutheran? Was this Hope Lutheran?
Yes,
School?
it was Hope Lutheran. I wanted to say Ascension, but Ascension is out. It's now Word of Life Lutheran.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 104.
So moved.
Second.
Previous?
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 104 is out with a due pass.
Thank you very much.
Next is Board Bill 100, Alderwoman Ingrassia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am here on Board Bill 100, which is 3304 Shenandoah in the Tower Grove East neighborhood. This is a renovation of an existing two-family residence into a single family. $65,000 in acquisition costs, $147,000 in construction costs. The asking price will be $249,000. This property was condemned in 2012, has needed quite a few updates for a very long time, and is in market type D in the city.
Alderman Schmidt.
This is Alderman Rhodey's?
It's mine,
No, this is
100.
20, or 100 here.
Thank you. No questions.
Alderman Cohen.
Just a kind of point of observation, it seems as though Shenandoah is blossoming right now. We're hearing quite a few tax abatement bills over there, so that's pretty exciting.
Alderwoman Howard,
No questions.
Alderman Villa,
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 100.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 100 is out with a due pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Dale, Board Bill 116, Alderman Rhodey.
Michael's going to take this one.
Kind of, yeah.
Michael, you're on.
Good afternoon.
Pictures.
Oh, thanks. Board Bill 116 is in the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood at 4321 to 25 Manchester Avenue. Excuse me. The developer is Kyle Miller and Sean Spencer. This project is a new construction of a mixed-use building. It also involves the demolition of an existing commercial single-story building that I previously housed a donut store. Acquisition was $150,000. Construction costs are approximately $2.3 million. 20 residential units, 2 commercial units that are 1,500 square feet. The building will also house 20 parking spaces for the residents below grade. And they anticipate creating 10 new full-time jobs. Alderman Rhodey supports a 10-year tax abatement, and staff concurs.
Alderman Schmidt.
This is in the Grove, right?
Yes.
So
Just-
they're really kind of hard up there in the Grove. I mean, honestly, they really are. They're tearing down a building. They went through preservation. They're getting a demolition of the building. So now the taxes on this are going to be on a vacant lot for the next 10 years.
Actually, we've been working with the assessor on that, and Dale would be better suited to answer that question, but I believe they will assess it at the current value of the improvements of the existing building.
Yeah, that's the plan, that there's a great deal of value there, but that would be included in the tax abatement.
Okay.
So they won't put it back to zero on the improvements.
The second parcel is vacant currently.
Yes, I realize that. Yes, thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Alderman Cohen.
I mean, I think that this is a really intriguing project. It certainly is blown up in the blogosphere in the development world. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how it all turns out.
Alderwoman Howard.
No questions.
Alderman Villa.
What did you say about the blogosphere?
The blogosphere.
Yeah.
It's all a Twitter right now in the blogosphere.
It's all a Twitter.
And I'm sure justifiably.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No questions.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
No questions.
Hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 116.
Moved. Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 116 is out with a due pass recommendation, and that should be the agenda.
Good. I do want to mention those of you that have had the privilege of working with Amina Wright. She is moving to our major project section of SLDC, and Zach Wilson will be taking her place. So Zach, if you would stand up, those of you that have been working with Amina will now be working with Zach. So
Plus, we have a major project.
You know, Dale, I don't understand. You finally get someone broken in, and then they move on.
well, it's such a good training program, you know?
Is that it, Amina? Are you going to say anything good about this, or?
Her value has
It's good for
doubled.
you, right?
Her value has doubled as a result of being in our section for a year. So.
She's always been valuable.
Congratulations.
All right, I don't know when the next meeting will be yet. Dale and I,
Now on Christmas,
yeah,
probably.
we'll have to get together and pick a day and see how many bills that we have. So as soon as we figure out a date, I'll have Tracy get it out to everybody. Other than that, we're adjourned.